What kind of a show are you guys putting on here today?
You're not interested in art?
No.
Now look, we're going to do this thing. We're going to have a conversation.
From Chicago, this is Filmspotting. I'm Josh Larson.
And I'm Adam Kempenar.
How do you live?
Well, I live with the confidence if I believe in myself, the money will follow.
And what do you plan to do if this whole dream of yours doesn't work
That
out?
doesn't even enter my consciousness.
Maybe it should.
In Marty Supreme, Timothée Chalamet is a 50s-era table tennis player bent on success at any cost. Josh Safdie's film is part of this week's slate of reviews.
Also this week, Gus Van Sant's new one, Dead Man's Wire, and James Cameron's Avatar, Fire and Ash. It's all ahead on Filmspotting. Welcome to Filmspotting. Happy New Year to all of our listeners. Happy New Year to you, Josh. It's been a little while since we've seen each other, though we have been churning out the content still for our listeners. How are you? How was your holiday season? And I think we've talked about this before. Any resolutions you want to share? You don't strike me as a resolution kind of guy.
Oof. Well, Happy New Year to you as well. Yeah, it's been a good break from school, from the show, honestly. A lot of the stuff we've been sharing is stuff you and Michael put in the can months ago, and even as far back as Filmspotting Fest last March. So yeah, it's been a nice break. I can't wait to get back to doing this. And yeah, no resolutions for me. I mean, can I just say I plan to finish this master's program. I'll come back from Scotland, hope to get that dissertation in. That's enough, right? I don't need to add anything on top of that.
I think you have enough on your plate. It is a new year, but we are going to remain in 2025 for a little bit. Next week, we will have our year-end wrap party. It's going to be a quiet affair. We will be doing it as we are recording right now from the comfort of our homes, as that goes anyway. Josh, can we call what you're in a home?
Yeah, I mean, I'm supposed to say flat over here now, but
it's a flat.
It feels homey at this point. It is not going to be as much fun as our live shows, Adam, though, which most of these wrap parties have been really throughout the show's history. I think, during COVID, obviously there was a year, maybe two, or maybe even three, we did it remotely. We're going to return to that this year. But the topics, these are always fun. So I think we're still going to have a good time.
We will. It's our scenes of the year, and we expect to get back to a live show wrap party at some point. But this year, we are going to be doing it remotely, and we will share our scenes of the year. Opening scene, funniest and most moving moment, our favorite music moment, and of course, we will crown our scenes of the year. You can be part of that show. Send your picks to feedback@filmspotting.net. And since we are a video show now, you don't have to just send an audio voicemail. You could send us a video with your phone and be part of the video show too, right, Josh?
Brave new world. I hadn't thought about that. I don't think we've done that yet. So that would be an exciting way to shake it up in 2026.
Again, that email, feedback@filmspotting.net. This week, you are our Pandora correspondent. You were live on the scene. You're going to fill us in on Avatar, Fire and Ash. I can't wait.
You know what, Adam? I can breathe on Pandora now. I don't need the mask anymore. It's
amazing.
It's a whole new experience.
I'm sure. I can report on Gus Van Sant's new one, Dead Man's Wire, which opens this weekend in limited release. And we also have a new poll for you. Looking ahead, we want to know your most anticipated film of 2026, though we do have the asterisk that comes out pre-Memorial Day. So the first half of 2026. As we just said, we are going to remind you that Filmspotting is now available as a video podcast. If you're a Spotify listener, you can toggle between audio and video. You can also watch the show on YouTube. Our YouTube is youtube.com/filmspotting. And for a link to all of our episodes and a link to those video episodes, just go to filmspotting.net/episodes.
But first, Marty Supreme.
During part 1 of our top 10 show, Alison Wilmore spoke at length about her number 9 film of the year, so why not start with the insightful foundation she provided? Alison described the tale of aspiring table tennis champion Marty Mauser, loosely based on the real-life story of Marty Reisman, as a, quote, spectacularly entertaining, chaotic, stressful, wonderful experience, unquote. Invoking the Coen brothers' creative split, she spoke of the Safdie brothers' individual output, allowing us perhaps to understand how Josh's contributions are unique from Benny's. Marty Supreme suggests that what she considers the Safdie brothers' sensibility, that desire to center movies on characters who are basically addicted to riding on the edge of chaos and courting disaster almost compulsively, should be attributed to Josh. She called Marty someone who believes he has an obligation to pursue his talent, and that Safdie and his co-screenwriter and co-editor, Ronald Bronstein, are using this compelling and repellent character, her words, to represent everything compelling and repellent about the American dream, our capacity for self-mythologizing, and the achievement of individual success. As for the actor portraying Marty, this is Timothée Chalamet's best role to date, in large part because his charisma and conviction are such that, despite being so destructive and irritating to everyone who is close to him or comes into contact with him, you never doubt why people continue to help him. I think the ways in which it manages to have this character be both so appealing and so kind of awful is an incredible art, summarized Alison. Formally, she praised Darius Kanji's cinematography and Jack Fist's production design for how lived in the early 1950s setting feels, bearing none of the weight of nostalgia such period pieces typically do, as well as the eclectic array of faces assembled by Safdie and casting director Jennifer Vendetti, which includes business mogul Kevin O'Leary and indie filmmaker Abel Ferrara, plus relative newcomer Odessa Azion, who plays Marty's childhood friend and lover Rachel, to complement established stars like Gwyneth Paltrow as a former Hollywood star and socialite named Kay Stone, who has an affair with Marty. Ultimately, Alison loved all that the movie shares with the Safdie's uncut gems, but also believes that it, and specifically the ending, which I think we might get to in some separate spoiler talk, offers something more substantial than the sheer thrills of watching a chaos addict. Josh, I know you like Marty Supreme. I know you like Marty Supreme because I saw your 3.5-star Letterboxd rating. That should tell me you liked it. Apparently, I can't know for sure unless you click the heart next to it. 4 out of 5 could mean didn't like. 2 out of 5 could mean did like. Up is down, black is white. Numbers are meaningless. Whatever.
I mean, I'm not that chaotic. Come on.
Here are some more numbers. It didn't make your top 10, nor your top 25. With Alison's case in mind, tell me the biggest reason why you did click the little letterboxed heart for Marty Supreme. I saw it. But more importantly, what muted your enthusiasm for a movie that seems destined for multiple Oscar nominations? And I'm going to repeat just briefly here your menu of choices. The abundant energy that accompanies the Josh Safdie sensibility to follow a character who compulsively courts disaster. Timothée Chalamet's lead performance. The inspired supporting performances and cameos, the cinematography and production design, its examination of the American dream, and or any other lofty ideas the film provoked you to ponder.
I think I appreciated every element on that list, just obviously a degree less than Alison, and I think a degree less than most people. I don't really even have a significant bone to pick with this movie. Minor quibbles. It was a great movie year, and that's why it was a little bit lower. I think other films from 2025 did some of these things better. And in fact, where I had quibbles in particular, movies like one that did make my top 10, Kelly Reichardt's The Mastermind, when it came to this American dream question, I found to be a more provocative exploration of that. The ending of Marty Supreme, which we are going to get into, I don't have major problems with. I think it's far less successful than the ending of The Mastermind. And this wasn't something where I was comparing the two side by side, even while I was watching The Mastermind. In the wake of while I was watching, I should say, Marty Supreme after watching The Mastermind. This is more, I'm putting in this context because of our top 10 lists. So I think it was just a matter of finding other films that did similar things a little bit better for me in 2025. That said, I don't know that I found a film that had this level of hurtling intensity, compounding chaos, thrill, ride, experience as Marty Supreme. And so I completely understand the rapturous responses people are having to this movie, especially freshly coming out of it, catching your breath and wondering what you just watched. I think it delivers on that front and is extremely exciting, simultaneously troubling on that front. I could say the same of Uncut Gems. And I think perhaps a reason why Marty Supreme is not as high on my list from last year is because I do appreciate Uncut Gems a bit better in treading similar ground. I think that's the case in terms of the propulsion, the performances, and I would say the ending of Uncut Gems too, which I had quibbles with, but had a conviction, I want to say, that perhaps I don't find in Marty Supreme. But before we get to those quibbles, I do want to spend more time hearing from you what you liked about it. I think you're higher on it than me, though it didn't make your top 10 list either. And yeah, I want to spend some time having fun with this movie because it was one of the more unique experiences of last year in the theater.
Yeah, and it's funny, I mentioned this on that top 10 roundtable show. We're on opposite ends now with the two movies you mentioned in terms of the endings. You very much approve of the ending of The Mastermind, me not so much. You quibble with the ending of Marty Supreme. I'm now fully on board with the ending of Marty Supreme. But yeah, Sam tried to shame both of us this week in the family newsletter for not liking Marty Supreme enough, even though I had it as my number 14 film of the year. I do get it, though, when you really swoon for a movie and have it as your number 2 of the year, as he did, it can feel like anything less is an insufficient level of an excitement.
Right.
Again,
right.
I get it. I did just rewatch this 2 days ago because it had been at least a month since I saw it. I felt like I needed to revisit it and fortunately had a chance to do that. My estimation for the film did only grow, largely because it did allow me to work through something that was holding me back a little bit from embracing it more strongly. And it is something, we're going to mention it again, even though I don't know that our non-family members are going to get a chance to hear it. It allowed me to work through something with the ending. And it's something that Allison Wilmore and I, it turns out, actually disagree about. Generally speaking, though, Allison and I couldn't be more in line. And why don't we start with Chalamet? I'm not prepared to start breaking down and comparing all of his lead performances, but she's right. His combination of appeal and awfulness, I think, is an art. He's magnetic and he's maddening. The contradiction that Chalamet gets is that Marty has an outsized ego and sense of pride, but absolutely no shame. No shame whatsoever. And I know you know this bit because you have just seen this film in the past couple of years and are a big fan of it, as I am, The Color of Money, the Martin Scorsese film. You know that bit early on in the film where Eddie says to Vincent, "You're some piece of work. You're also a natural character." And Vince misunderstands him and says, "You see, he's saying I got natural character." And he says, "That's not what I said, kid. I said you are a natural character. You're an incredible flake." Vincent has got nothing on Marty in the flake department. And Marty, too, is even more of a character. But Chalamet plays him so magnetically, but also so naturally, so unaffectedly that you never see him. I never saw him as a character. I never saw him playing that character. You see his humanity. You understand his ambition. And you can admire his drive and his single-mindedness, even as his choices do consistently. Sometimes they shock you, consistently disappoint you and disappoint others around him. And I do think this. I think that he's good at convincing people to give him what he wants, not necessarily because he's an exceptional con man. I think it's because he makes everyone around him feel alive. He has a line that alludes to that. That's kind of a throwaway line that happens over the course of an argument, but he says to someone, I give you meaning. He gives you money, I give you meaning. And Chalamet as a performer has to live up to that with Marty, where you feel like he gives everyone around him meaning. And I think he does. There's a generosity that Chalamet has to bring to balance out the selfishness of the character. And he may be lying almost all the time, but Josh, he's always authentically himself, which I think is also what separates him from some of the other people in the movie who may seem more straightforwardly honest. And maybe that's something that's uniquely Safdian, actually, about this character and some of those other characters, is that the irony is that maybe he's the only one in the movie who isn't actually a phony. He's exactly who he is all the time, even if sometimes he has to play a role to get what he wants. There's never any question about his identity and his sense of purpose.
The brilliant moments in this performance are the ones not where he is lying, bald-faced lying to people, because he does do that quite a bit, right? And he's mesmerizing and charismatic and convincing and entrancing when he's doing that. He has to be for the people to buy his lie, and then we're caught up in it as well as the audience. The scenes that show you what a great performance this is are the ones where he's talking to someone who knows pretty much who he is, but has not kicked him out of their life yet.
Yes.
And so he's doing exactly what you just described. He's being his authentic, genuine self. He's not lying to their face. What he's doing is selling his mania and conviction and single-mindedness, and manages still to get them to buy. So is he tricking them? Is he lying to them? No. Is he being good to them? Is he being a healthy presence in their life? No. Do they still follow along? In most cases, yes. And I think that's the magic of the performance, is getting us to buy that. One of my hiccups, however, I will say, is that a performance I really like better. Chalamet was just outside my ballot for best performances of the year. As we talked on that show, Odessa Azion as Rachel did make my ballot. And it's because the moment I didn't quite believe is when the script required her to still follow through with him longer on the film, because I felt her performance was so strong and authentic and independent that you sense this woman who she was, as she was being performed, might have been the one to say, hold up, this is enough. I'm getting off this train. So that's maybe not, it's not a fault of his performance, because in those scenes with her, I think he's threading that same needle. And I think that's when Chalamet is at his best. Another thing that's interesting about him here, though, in this movie, and this is entirely unfair, I'll confess to it, it's been hard for me to separate Marty, the campaigner for the direction of his life, for this ping pong championship, and Chalamet, the campaigner for the Best Actor Oscar. And I think it's working out
I haven't
for him.
seen any of that, fortunately.
There's been so much, interesting, like, meta stuff. Like, he's campaigning as a campaigner, and it's funny. But it's also the same energy, and I'm sure it's meant to be. It's the same energy as Marty. And so it's hard for me, in a sense, to kind of separate that, even though I know I should. There's a line actually that speaks to this directly that Marty says at one point. Great line in the context of the movie, but kind of captures all what I've been talking about. Drama is very important to me. Right. I don't want to undercut the drama. I mean, it's great. And I think he's talking at that point, trying to convince the sponsor about the ping pong tournament in Japan, right? And he's saying this is how they have to set it up. There has to be drama involved. And I think you definitely feel that extra textural sense of pursuing the drama seeping into the movie. I don't know that there's any other way to do this role, though.
Sure. I am with you on Odessa Azion's performance. I think this movie, and I here I'll say there's a lot to unpack. I don't know if we'll get to it. There's a lot to unpack with the depiction of female characters in this movie, and certainly with her character, Rachel, as well. But the movie as it's scripted still needs her especially, but every character in this movie to still need them to be orbiting around Marty. So I never had any doubts about, or the doubt that you expressed about whether or not she would ever shoot off from that orbit. She's always still within his gravitational pull. But that said, the brilliance of the performance for me, and I'll give you the exact moment where it really clicked. I mean, I liked her from the moment she appeared on screen, but where it really clicked for me, I'll get to in a moment. On paper, if I just started listing for you who Rachel is, her traits and the basic demographics about her and what she does in the movie, even just sort of listing them as facts, I think you'd get a very different picture of her than the willful, complex woman that Zion portrays.
In some ways.
Yes, and that's it. That's where I'm going. She can't talk.
I know which scene you're going to talk about.
That's it, right? She can't talk like Marty does. No one in the movie can, even though she does have some of the same desires. So her eyes have to do the work for her of saying and expressing a lot of the things that her character can't. And the unlock for me happened for the character and the performance. It's the scene where we realize that she's willing to hustle to get what she wants just as much as he is. And she might even be as good a hustler or an even better hustler than him, that she can perform that well, even if it means hustling him as much as she loves him. And what Chalamet through Marty expresses in that moment too, there's a little pause in this scene that I love. What Chalamet expresses in that pause is simultaneously both a sense of complete betrayal and hurt and also respect. Total respect. It's like game meets game. He gets it in that moment.
Yeah. And she has a face that's easier to believe, which, I think is why she might be better at this than Marty if she really wanted to go down this path. And I will say that without spoiling it, the story gives her a reason where you could believe she might stick with him through all this out of desperation, out of no other choice. I don't know that the script plays it that way. That might have been a little bit more honest. I found that it played it more romantically, which I didn't quite buy.
I would agree.
You could point to that as a defense. This is why she does not exit stage left and instead sticks with him. So
sure. I do want to keep going with that eclectic array of faces though, because I do think that is an incredible strength of this film, the ensemble. I don't know whether some of these names or the majority of the names that you would see if you go to IMDb have done a lot of acting. If they've done no acting, I know that there are cases where nobody has done acting, but it doesn't matter. The fact that they're unique faces, that in some cases they are unknown to me, they give this movie so much texture. How about just in that opening scene, Ralph Colucci, the guy who plays Lloyd, is someone I could watch all day. Luke Manley, the guy who plays Dion, who he enlists to help him with the orange ping pong balls. But even someone like Giza Rohrig as Kletsky, the British Open champion that he defeats and that he's really close friends with, who gives us one of the most interesting scenes of the year at the dinner scene with Kevin O'Leary as well. And here's someone I know because I looked him up just to make sure. Someone like, this is such a minor scene in the grand scheme of things, but I'm just giving an example of adding that texture. Someone like Donato P. Diodario, who's Officer Sal. In the scene where his uncle is trying to teach him a lesson and he pays off a cop friend of his, right, to handcuff him and, work him over a little bit, make him think he might actually take him to jail. That is one of those faces that just feels so authentic. And I looked him up. Of course, he has no other acting credits. And the point here is that you could list 100 with this film. And that of course isn't stunt casting, But there are others that are stunts, even if there are subtle stunts, because you may not be aware of it. For example, I mean, you're a bigger basketball fan than me, but I'm guessing you didn't recognize that the guy who owns the place that he goes to practice ping pong and he occasionally sleeps, that's George Gervin. Yeah. George the Iceman Gervin, right? I had no idea until I looked that up just yesterday. But he's another interesting face on screen, another interesting presence on screen. And sneaking in, this time I couldn't believe it because I admitted I didn't pick him out somehow. And Allison told me, Mamet was the stage director. Of course he was. Now, before I even saw him, I heard his voice and I knew it was David Mamet, and then he appears on screen. But then you get to someone, Josh, like Abel Ferrara, who I've never seen before. I don't know what he looks like. I didn't know that was him, the filmmaker playing that character Ezra. And he is both the most terrifying and maybe the most sympathetic character in the movie. And he's completely unforgettable.
Well, it's the transition he makes from being, and I think this is representative, though he gets more screen time than all these people you're listing. I think it's representative of why they work. That character makes the transition from doing one bit for one moment to becoming a thread, and you start to see him as a more whole person. Now, what you learn is terrifying, and you maybe wish you hadn't learned it, but when we first meet him, he's entirely sympathetic. And that's captured, in the performance. But I think, Adam, even these 2-3 scene people we've been describing, like they manage to not only bring that unique texture because they don't look like stars or familiar, but they also, and this is where the writing should get some credit too, like get lines that speak to who they are in this life beyond just who they are to Marty. And, I think his friend or cousin, who you mentioned, I'm forgetting the name, but who comes up with the idea for the orange ping balls. Yeah. Like he's a perfect example of that. All of his scenes are very short, but by the end of each of them, I feel like I know that guy's whole life. I know how it relates to Marty, but I also feel like I know how it relates to his parents, his desires for his own life. And it's rare that you get a movie that allows these bit parts to have that sort of richness. And richness, I think, is a good word for this movie. It goes back to a lot of these more technical craft elements we've been talking about, from the cinematography and other elements like that, the production design. There is a texture to this movie that is also, I think, rare.
There definitely is. And I know now, I mean, I felt it the first time I saw it. I certainly felt it again the second time I saw it. And then having rewatched it, I took producer Sam's advice. And just yesterday, Josh, I listened to the DGA podcast where Ben Affleck interviews Josh Safdie. And guess what? It's not an accident. It's not just randomly or some weird alchemy that's happening on screen that we feel all this texture and everything you just described in terms of these characters feeling like they're bringing an entire life to the screen. Josh Safdie wrote backgrounds for every single one of the extras. They know at minimum, if not their entire life story, they know exactly what that character was doing in the scene before their scene and in the scene after that scene, what they were bringing to that moment. For every single extra, there are 3,800 extras in the movie. 3,800. They cast all of them, which means they didn't just say, hey, company, go out and get 100, 1,000 extras and have them show up on the day. No, they cast each one of them specifically for this movie, and he provided them with that background, that richness, so that they brought that to the film. And it's there on the screen. We are all sensing it there on the screen. It's really remarkable. And
you could definitely feel that. What I was going to say, for sure.
I wish someone like Fran Drescher as his mother had a little bit more to do, got a little bit more of that depth. She still brings a bit of mystery to an otherwise one-note minor character, right?
Great couple of scenes, I think.
Great couple of scenes. And I do think you can tell that Kevin O'Leary isn't an actor, especially when he's in scenes with so many incredibly talented actors. But when he's saying lines like what is now the most famous line maybe in this movie, I was born in 1601, I'm a vampire, I've been around forever. I'm okay, Josh, with it feeling a little forced because everything that guy does is overbearing and is a little too insistent. And you understand who that guy is, and you understand how overbearing and honestly how kind of awful he is the moment he appears on screen, and that's enough.
Hey, he sold me. In that moment, I was like, maybe he is a vampire. Like
He could be.
That might be unlocking a lot of things here.
Exactly. Yeah, in terms of the formal elements too, bringing up the production design and the cinematography as well. The first time I saw this, it was a screener. And our friend Scott Tobias, I was texting with him that morning, and I mentioned to him that I was going to see Marty Supreme later that day. And I didn't understand why he said this, but I was able to put it together, especially later after seeing it. He said, play it loud. I think he put it in all caps, play it loud, right? So then I got it, that this is a bombastic film in every way, but including with the sound design. Well, I got to see it the second time in the theater. I got to see it at Film Scene in Iowa City. And Sophie, our PA, my daughter, she works at Film Scene, and she says that they have been getting killed with complaints from some of the older clientele who have been coming out in droves saying, you have to turn it down.
Too loud. Interesting.
And of course they can't turn it down. That's the way this movie is calibrated. It is just calibrated at that volume. And for me, especially seeing it in the theater and really feeling it, that propulsiveness that we've talked about, but getting the volume on full blast for those anachronistic needle drops and that Daniel Lopatin score. What a treat. What a treat that was. And I here again, I couldn't agree more with Allison that with this focus that Safdie is bringing to the casting with authenticity, there's nothing overly reverential or nostalgic in the visual approach as well. And I think part of that is how reliant it is in its construction on medium close-ups and close-ups. And this is something we see in Uncut Gems too, right? That's part of the jittery, the handheld approach that makes it feel really claustrophobic, right? Is there's not a lot of extra room in the frame when it's that close to the characters and you feel like you're that close to the characters. But that's not what's happening here. This movie doesn't feel the same as Uncut Gems feels. And thank God, right? I think it does feel very different, but it never is about showcasing the location. It's never about wasting time with establishing shots. It isn't about making you dizzy, like I said with Uncut Gems. But I do think that Safdie and Kanji are almost always they're tracking characters and they're showing characters with these tight shots. And it does create urgency. It creates intimacy with the characters. I think it's another reason why we're talking about the textures that all these characters bring and the layers of the performances, because we see all the nuances. We see the nuances in their faces, in their emotions, in their reactions. And when do we widen out? When we widen out, like with great dance numbers, it's with the ping pong scenes where we see the full physicality on display. That's when he brings the camera fully out so we can see the table, we can see the bodies in motion. And that's remarkable as well.
Can we go back to the needle drops?
Because I like them. Yeah, let's do it.
Not a fan. Not a fan, I gotta say. And this isn't because they're anachronistic or that I'm opposed to needle drops in general. I just found it to be somewhat tied to a pattern, a little bit related to what I was talking about with Chalamet's performance. And again, perhaps unfairly, having the campaign in my mind, an insistence that for me was a little separate from the propulsion of the film. They're related, but to me, there were two separate things where the movie was insisting on its own intensity at times, where Uncut Gems felt like that was just in the air, where you just breathed the chaos in Uncut Gems. You felt the construction of the chaos just a tad more here. I do think it's a, as I said at the top, it's a remarkable, distinct quality of the film. And perhaps this is just an unfair comparison, Uncut Gems, but the needle drops are connected to this. It just felt like it's trying a little bit hard. The recurring bit with the dog, there's like maybe one scene with the dog where I'm like, we've got it. We know we're already quite distressed about the dog. We don't need another one. And I feel like there's
separate from the music. Is that what you're saying?
It's separate from the music, but it's the same insistence to me.
Okay.
Like there's an insistence to Chalamet's performance. There's an insistence to the dog scenes.
Yeah.
And there's an insistence to like, I'm insisting this needle drop in here. That is maybe just pushing it. Just, the movie wants to impress us as much as Marty wants to impress us. And a little bit of space between those two things, I think would have gone a long way.
I think I didn't feel that, especially because from the moment we got Forever Young in that credit sequence and the entire fertilization moment, if you will, which actually does. Someone reminded me of this. A colleague that I was texting with reminded me that Uncut Gems, I'd forgotten this, opens with something similar with the colonoscopy, like right?
Uh-huh.
So I was so on board from that moment that those needle drops to me somehow never felt obtrusive. Now, it's funny that you bring up the dog, because this transitions nicely into something I did want to bring up in terms of just kind of what the film's all about and the experience I had the second time, and why I'm actually so much on board with it more the second time, even though I really liked it the first time. And one of the revelations I suppose I had is I'm watching this film and I realize, okay, this film really is two halves. It is a movie that's about Marty up through the British Open with that first match that he has with Endo, the Japanese table tennis player. And then it's post British Open. And the second half is where it really feels like a Safdie film, right? That's where Allison talked about Marty as a chaos addict. That's all there. Marty getting himself into deeper and deeper trouble. Everything seems to be just going off the rails, getting progressively crazier. I recognize that this is what made it distinct. In the moment I was watching it the first time, I was feeling, well, this is that Safdian sensibility. I like that this is essentially a sports movie, but he's doing something so dramatically weird and different with it. But I have to be honest, I found it unwieldy. Like you, Josh, the hustle at the bowling alley. You're like, am I really going to have to sit through this entire, like, we know how this is going to end. This is feeling a little long. How long is this going to take to play out? The stuff with the dog. We're back at the house now with the dog. I got the excess. I understood it intellectually. My attention was waning. But where the second viewing was clarifying was that structure. What's the structure of Marty Supreme? It's actually a pretty conventional sports movie in this respect anyway. It's an athlete trying to avenge an earlier loss to a rival. Act 1, he loses. Act 2 is the build-up to the rematch and the rematch itself, and I'll leave it at that, where the hero trains, and through hard work and grit and determination, hopefully, usually in sports movies, the hero wins. Except here, this is the brilliance of the screenplay here and what Safdie and Ronald Bronstein are bringing to the table. Except here, the training is about 30 seconds of actual ping pong practice and 90 minutes of hard work and grit and determination just to get the money to buy the plane ticket to travel to get to the rematch. It's kind of incredible when you think about it. And so the epiphany for me, and I'm open to anyone quibbling with this, I'm quibbling with Allison's take on the film and others who might be associating Marty too closely with Howard Ratner in Uncut Gems. I don't think Marty is addicted to chaos. I don't think he is courting chaos. I think he is more comfortable with it than a lot of us are. He sure seems to find it. I don't think he's afraid of it, but he isn't just hustling for the sake of hustling. He is hustling with purpose because he has a purpose. There's even a line at one point in the movie. He says, everything in my life's falling apart, but I'm going to figure it out. In the second half, he says that. Someone who's courting disaster, courting chaos, doesn't say everything in my life's falling apart. And what does he say to Rachel? I have a purpose. If you think that it's some kind of blessing, it's not. It means I have an obligation to see a very specific thing through. And so maybe I still didn't necessarily need, Josh, the second trip with the dog. But what I can tell you is that watching it again and having that click into place and realize that every single thing that happens in the second act, it's not just an introduction of a new example of chaos. Yet again, Marty spinning out of control. It's actually just step by step, him doing everything he can do, the thing that's directly in front of him, to earn enough money to get a plane ticket to go to Tokyo. That's it. He's singularly focused on only that objective. Once I realized that he's just too broke to go to Tokyo, and if he can't compete, then he can't fulfill his purpose. I had a different experience with the film, with the second half of the film, certainly, and it didn't feel like excessive storytelling to me. It actually felt like pretty efficient storytelling.
Yeah, this raises a question that it's a crucial question, but we can't really know the answer to until we see the next movie and we find out what Marty does next. Because I think I agree that he's not addicted to chaos. He's not seeking new forms of chaos. He definitely has a goal. But what I do wonder, if you consider Marty to be like a narcissistic personality, and I don't know that we know for sure enough to say that, but there's hints that it's possible, right?
There's
few
plenty
hints
of evidence. Yes.
So for someone like that, is it really the goal, or is it that having a goal reshapes the world and everyone around them to be about their needs? And I think that's different both from what Allison was talking about in terms of pursuing chaos,
yes,
and, if I'm hearing you correctly, different from what you're talking about, which
it's certainly closer to what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but you're, if I'm hearing you, it's similar to what I read the movie as wanting, is like his methods may be unhealthy, but his purpose is in a way noble. And by achieving it, he will have attained something valuable. And I wonder, based on the character traits we see, if I had to put money on it, it's that the next day, no matter what's happened to him in the final scene, Marty will have a new goal that will require everyone to once again, and I mean the new people now, to orbit themselves around his next goal. That's my instinct from what I've seen in terms of his behavior and how he's treated people throughout this film. And so that's why I think if you do see Marty Supreme as a redemption story of some way, it doesn't ring true to me. I don't know that's how we're supposed to see it, but it's more difficult for me to see it that way because I'm a little suspicious of this goal really giving him the meaning he expects it to.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, because I think your read of it seems to fall in line with most people that I've talked to, and it is a little bit different than my read, and that discussion will have to wait for spoiler talk, a little bit of separate spoiler talk that we will record. But I want to say this, and the fun thing, the great thing about having this conversation, and I have seen some things online, and I know that there's discussion out there about Marty as a character, and I find the hand-wringing, the moralizing about characters in movies to be a bit much. I mean, when did we start to expect art to be so reassuring and so comforting, as opposed to something that is challenging, and our characters to be complicated? That's the point, is that they should be complicated, and they're not real. in this case, he's certainly not real, whether or not he's based in some way loosely on a real person. So we get to observe and contemplate and think about these things and have these kind of moral and ethical provocations because of the character. So the wanting to dismiss Marty that some people I know want to do and dismiss the movie because they don't like Marty and his behavior. I simply don't understand. And when I say I'm going to soften my read of Marty a little bit, I don't mean I want to make him be a better person. I don't care whether or not for this conversation he's a good person or a bad person. I don't like the binary nature of those terms. What I think the movie, in terms of its complexity, is getting at, though, through Marty and through his ambition and through this sense of purpose, is I think all of the things that build his identity matter. I think his class matters. I think his Jewishness matters, and there's a reason why that comes up in multiple ways in the film and multiple times in the film. Everything he does in the movie, as I read it, no matter how misguided it is, and again, this doesn't justify everything he does, but everything he does as he sees it is in service of his obligation. And so what makes Marty Supreme great to me is that Safdie transforms a sports saga into a biting portrait of ambition, class, and identity. It's a relentless odyssey of purpose and survival where every hustle feels like a claim to value in a world that's eager to deny it. Like, not just claim to greatness, which he is aspiring to, but by aspiring to greatness, he's just claiming that he has value. I think Marty recognizes the myth of the American dream, or he understands that as an outsider, that the American dream doesn't exist, that the notion that it is open to everybody and it's just there for the taking if you work hard is, in fact, that myth, and that the outsider is what he is and what everybody is constantly looking to relegate him to. And the only way for him to not be that outsider and get what he wants and take what he wants is to not play by those rules.
Yeah, find a shortcut.
Take whatever shortcut he can.
Yeah.
And I think those are some of the larger questions that the movie opens up for me.
Yeah, which are all interesting, and totally agree with you about, yes, we should be able to watch movies featuring main characters who we disapprove of. And that can still be interesting and informative. And I think the more nuanced conversation, again, we keep saying this, but maybe that will come up in our spoiler talk, is how successful do we think Marty Supreme is at doing that compared to other movies I had in the back of my head from the 1970s, the great anti-hero performances. Last year, we had occasion to consider a couple of these, Gene Hackman in Scarecrow or Jack Nicholson in The Last Detail. And, what the movie's attitudes were towards those characters in relationship to the audience's expectations and the willingness to subvert those or to comfort the audience. That's where I saw a distinction a little bit between Marty Supreme and some of those 70s movies. And man, the people who are disturbed by Marty Supreme because it features someone who makes you uncomfortable, I don't know what they'd do if they watched some of those 70s movies with like Hackman and Nicholson, right? It would blow their minds.
I think you're right. Whether this ends up being part of a qualitative judgment in your analysis of this film or not, all you have to do is well, first watch this film, I would say, watch Uncut Gems as well, but also, if you want, read anything either Safdie brother has said about Howard Ratner or what they said to me in my interview with them on this show, which we dropped into the feed earlier this week, or what Josh Safdie has said about this character. They love these men. They genuinely, that doesn't mean they approve of every choice they make. That's something different. But they love these men in a way that I think is very different from the types of characters you're talking about and the relationship those writers and directors probably had with the figures you're mentioning.
Maybe, and if that's the case, maybe that's the distinction I'm picking up. And the end result, maybe I prefer one over the other.
Yeah, I think there's romance here. I think there's a romanticization, if I said that correctly, of a romanticizing of characters like Howard Ratner and Marty Supreme, that there is not.
More Marty than Howard.
Maybe more Marty than Howard, but we as viewers may romanticize someone like B.A. in The Last Detail or R.P. McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest more perhaps than the filmmakers themselves offer us on screen. I think that's a fair distinction. We will stop there with Marty Supreme. For now, Marty Supreme is playing in wide release. If you have seen it and agree or disagree with our takes, you can email us feedback@filmspotting.net. We may share some of that feedback on a future show.
And it's only a matter of time before I'm staring at you from the cover of a Wheaties box.
You think it's that simple? Yeah, I do.
Adam, we just wrapped up, I think, at least a half hour of spoiler talk.
At least.
On Marty Supreme. We have very different takes, let's just say that, on maybe the film as a whole, we might have discovered at the end of that conversation.
It turns out it's pretty nuanced and might just be a matter of semantics, but we still talked about it for 30 minutes plus.
And all of that is going to be in the Filmspotting family member feed, a special offering for our family members who we want to take a moment to thank because they are crucial support in allowing us to do this show. We want to thank one particular Family Plus member, we should say, and that is Grant Averitt in Lexington, Kentucky. Grant is on Letterboxd, as so many of us are. If you want to follow Grant there, look for Grant692. Now, filling out our questionnaire, Grant wrote this. A friend recommended Filmspotting to me in 2012 or so, and then I listened to Adam and Michael Phillips review It Follows and their top 5 21st century horror movies. It got me hooked. A review we got wrong for Grant. Everything Marx Brothers. Duck Soup is one of the greatest and funniest comedies of all time. I think Grant has Michael's support on that, right, Adam?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that he does.
Michael holds that against us. Grant also shared a movie that he credits with becoming a cinephile, Casablanca. I watched it at a summer camp during the summer before my senior year of high school, and it blew my mind. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of films since, but none of them have been better.
Good timing. I just watched last night in preparation for our upcoming Diane Keaton tribute. I just watched Play It Again, Sam. And of course, that whole film is really about, in some ways, Casablanca. It opens with like 7 minutes. The ending of that movie and the ending of Play It Again, Sam steals directly from it as well. So have that film very much in mind. And guess what? Good movie, Casablanca. Josh, not sure if you were aware.
I like it too. I'm a fan.
Okay. Yeah. We do thank Grant for being a family member and for all of his years of listening. It does come with perks being a family member. You get to listen early and ad-free. You get the weekly newsletter. You get exclusive opportunities like being part of the Filmspotting Family Discord. And yes, you do get monthly bonus shows or just monthly or regular bonus content. You might get consistent spoiler talk like that Marty Supreme spoiler talk Josh was mentioning. We're not exactly sure as we are recording in this moment. I could do a live update, but the voting has not ended yet, Josh, as we're recording.
Give me a live update. This is always exciting.
Ooh. I mean, this is the thing. It's so close. So family members get to vote. We gave them 3 options. January bonus is We Were Wrong Once. So we take a movie that at least one of us was probably wrong about. The consensus is this is a great movie. One of us, maybe on the show, maybe not on the show, had a different opinion about. And the options we came up with were Boogie Nights, Bringing Up Baby, and Collateral. Real quick, I'm the naysayer on Collateral. We have never talked about it on the show. Bringing Up Baby, Sam and I are the naysayers on that. I don't know how you feel about it, Josh. You can chime in, but that was part of our Screwball Comedies marathon back in like 2005 or 6, and Sam and I somehow didn't go for that Howard Hawks classic at all.
That's hard to believe for some reason, especially I feel on Sam's part, but I think I was cool on Bringing Up Baby when I first saw it. I don't know that I actively, and I checked my website, I don't have a written review there. I don't know that I actively disliked it, but I think I was definitely lower, certainly than those who consider it a screwball classic.
Mm-hmm. And then Boogie Nights, maybe a little bit of a weird choice, but January, it's still one battle after another time, and we are going to give some time to One Battle After Another as a Sacred Cow review. We have that coming up, and maybe that was on producer Sam's mind when he suggested a Boogie Nights conversation. I love Boogie Nights. That's in my top 5 Paul Thomas Anderson films, but Josh, you have it at number 8 on your list, and Sam has it at number 9. So to be clear, I don't think either of you are saying Boogie Nights is a bad film. You do have it ranked very low.
Yeah, and I think, my original star rating was like 3 out of 4 when most PTAs are generally like 3.5 or higher for me. So yeah, lower tier, perhaps I'm wrong. And it is as good as his best. If that's where listeners vote, we'll get a chance to consider that.
So the live update, again, as we are taping, the polls are still open for about 9 more hours. So we'll see where it shakes out. But Boogie Nights is in the lead, but only by 2 votes over Bringing Up Baby.
2 votes over which?
2 votes. Bringing Up
Baby is in second.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Collateral is not going to be in contention. It's going to be Boogie versus Baby.
All right.
So you have that to look forward to if you are a family member, a conversation about one of those films. And if you are potentially looking to become a Filmspotting family member, we have a promo code for you through January 31st. You can take 20% off a Filmspotting family membership. Any Filmspotting family membership, just use the promo code, Josh, you'll like this one, Supreme. Use promo code Supreme for 20% off. Filmspottingfamily.com is where you can help us out. And another way you can help us out, take a minute, give us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Every review or rating does help us reach new listeners.
This is the only pure thing in this world. The fire came from the mountain, burnt our forest. My people cried for help. But Ava did not come.
Such a bummer, Josh. Turns out my passport to Pandora has been revoked.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't take the trip, but you've taken all 3 trips enthusiastically, and you have a report from James Cameron's CGI Playground. I would love to hear whether or not Avatar Fire and Ash was enjoyable for you.
I mean, I can help you with that. I think if you apply for the tourist visa, it's easier to get in. So, for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, we'll get that worked out for you.
Oh my.
This is a good movie. This is, I think it's the second best. I really went for the first Avatar just as this blindingly inventive visual extravaganza. And Way of Water, I thought was interesting. Here's what Fire and Ash gives Adam, and you're never going to believe it. Okay. Compelling characters. I have never praised any of these movies for compelling characters. But I think what helps is that The Way of Water dumped on us a whole bunch of new characters. Here, we now know who they are, which helps. And I think it's more in the screenplay as well that is now giving us time to meet these characters as fully realized individuals. And Cameron is writing here with Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver. They also did Way of Water, but they were also instrumental in the Planet of the Apes films that we both have appreciated as screenwriters. And I don't think you felt their hand in Way of Water as much as you do here. The result for me is that we still have this wide-scale conflict, right, between the invading humans and the indigenous Na'vi on Pandora. This is not going to convince you to see this or the next one, Adam. That conflict is still unfolding at the end of this 3.5-hour movie, okay? But what's crucial here, and that I did appreciate and actually liked quite a bit, this one is more about what the conflict means for individual characters and their evolving understanding of themselves. And this is really across the board for a number of characters. I'm just going to highlight two in the sake of our own time. But one is Neytiri, who we've met since the beginning. This is Zoe Saldana playing the Na'vi who falls in love with Sam Worthington's Marine in the first film. The Marine, Jake Sully, is transformed into Na'vi. They have this relationship in Weight of Water. They have kids, and now they're a couple who's been together and they have these growing children. And Neytiri has come to regret in this film her involvement with humans. And the performance is ferocious and hissing. She gets lines like, "I hate their pink little hands." And what's interesting here is that they have, in our terms, we would say biracial kids, essentially. And these two have a conversation about this. And Neytiri's grief over what has been lost in Way of Water from her son, it's real, it's palpable. You understand, again, how this conflict has affected her, how it's changed her, and the anger she has. The performance is so crucial to that. And the animation of the faces, I think there's even an advancement in this movie that helps that to register. All right, the other character I'll talk about is a new one, Varang, played by Una Chaplin, who is new to the series, part witch and part warrior. Varang leads this Na'vi clan. They're somewhat like pirates. She stalks the screen in this movie as if like everything on the screen is potential prey. It's an incredible physical performance. But what's also interesting is that Varang has this theologically compelling background. I know I'm going to lose you here, Adam. Hang on. Awa. Do you remember Awa? The goddess figure of Pandora. Okay. Supposed to keep everything in unity, is what Awa is supposed to do. All right. So Varang, this new character, her clan, a volcano almost wiped them all out. Before that, she tells us this in a story at one point. She had prayed to Awa, save us, rescue us, wasn't rescued. So she has decided to defy this goddess and embrace the fire of the volcano and just became basically this violent, leader of this pirate clan. She falls in with the invading humans. So she colludes because there's promise of weapons, and it's a compelling character rooted in the great villains need good reasons for their villainy, and Varang has that. Now, I'll say before we get out of here that, of course, there have always been problems with Avatar in this equation it's making between the Na'vi and indigenous people on Earth, right? And how awkward that is. Is Cameron appropriating here? Is he honoring? And Varang is kind of like a flashpoint for that, because terrible decision to have her clan, these pirates that she leads, like hoot and holler, like you're watching some 50s Western, and they're the quote unquote savages. Why? Why does the movie do that? Completely unnecessary. At the same time, Varang has this interesting backstory. So she's definitely a flashpoint, and I want to point people to one review that's just obliterating Fire and Ash on this point in terms of the representation. And that's Walter Chaw, who I've gotten to know for my time out in Denver, Boulder area. And I'll link to this in the show notes, but he just takes a flamethrower like Varang likes to the movie for some of these notions. So I do want to acknowledge that. And whenever this comes up, I think there's a more nuanced portrayal of her in the movie, but I always cede the point to those who are, have personal background at stake when these issues are raised. And I think Walter does make some interesting points to consider. So again, we'll link to that. I, however, am a fan of Fire and Ash. I think it's in the area of character and narrative, a significant advancement, and honestly gives me hope for the series if we do indeed get more of these.
Thoughtful, as always, insightful. I don't know if it's convincing enough, Josh, to get me. There's going to be another one?
I knew that was a tall task. Is there really going to be
another one?
I don't know. Don't they always say they have to see how much money it makes? And this thing's already bringing in like, millions, possibly billions. So likely there is.
Yeah. I know this is the joke about this movie, at least it seems to be on social media, that no one actually knows anybody who loves these movies, who really loves these movies. Like, who are the people that are just dying to see Avatar? And yet the box office proves that these movies are reliable and people are obviously excited about them. And you think that's justified, at least with Fire and Ash.
Yeah. And I'll say too, to point to another conversation, Pop Culture Happy Hour. I'm sorry, it was a guest critic. I'm not pulling their name right now, but they're one of those people. Like I believe they said they watch Way to Water like 3 or 4 times a year, and Avatar itself. So they're, these movies, it seems like the most obvious thing in the world to say, but yes, they've struck a chord.
Okay.
What are you here in Indianapolis? It is Tuesday, February 8th. I'm DJ Fred Temple. I thank you for listening.
Mr. Temple, sir, you have a caller?
I have dinner in 30 minutes is what I have.
That Tony Kuritz's fella's on the line and he's asking to speak to you. The guy with the shotgun in the man's neck.
You should open with that shit, James.
Dead Man's Wire is the latest from Gus Van Sant. It's the Milk and Good Will Hunting director's first since 2018's Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot. This is based on the 1977 true story of a man who wired himself with the explosive Dead Man's Wire of the title and kidnaps the mortgage banker who did him wrong. Bill Skarsgård and Dacre Montgomery star along with Al Pacino and Coleman Domingo. It opens in limited release this weekend. Adam, does Van Sant still have the filmmaking chops?
Yeah, it's good to see him back. He's crafted a tense, slyly funny caper anchored by a nervy performance from Skarsgård that flips the Dog Day Afternoon script. What if Sonny had a plan? One of the pleasures of watching Dead Man's Wire isn't just thinking about the movie in relation to Dog Day Afternoon. Both are mid-70s set crime movies that involve banks, hostages, and the hostage takers become folk heroes of sorts. But it's considering whether this folk hero, Tony Kuritzis, saw Dog Day Afternoon and was possibly even influenced by it. The movie came out in September 1975, and this event occurs in February 1977. Tony even walks into the bank. As far as I know, as I recall, the movie never directly references, this movie never directly references Dog Day, but he even walks into the bank carrying one of those long florist boxes, just like Sonny. Except it turns out, it's a bit of a surprise. There's no absurd tap dance with the shotgun. And it turns out there's not even a shotgun in it. There's a blueprint for this rig. He's actually got the gun on him, but there's a blueprint for this rig that he's created, that Dead Man's Wire, to keep his hostage. And it's this guy, Dick, who is played by Dacre Montgomery. Just in case anything were to happen that might separate him, it's ingenious, right? If any cop comes up, any sudden movements of any kind, Dick is going to get blown away. And Tony's not exactly cool, but he's a bit on edge, but he has thought every aspect of this through. He's rehearsed it. He's in control, unlike Sonny. Even when something goes wrong, the opening of the film is him showing up in his car, and when he turns the ignition, Josh, the key breaks off in the ignition and he can't restart his car. The plan was to leave in his car, but there's no panic, just kind of bemusement. He adapts, he carries on. The cherry on top of it all, you said his name, is the casting of Al Pacino as Dick's father in the movie. And he's the man Tony actually has the biggest beef with. He's the guy Tony actually intended to take hostage that day, ended up taking his son instead because the dad was on vacation. Another big difference here is that Sonny is an accidental rager against the machine. His intentions are personal, not political. For Tony, the personal is political. His outrage is theater. And Van Sant clearly wants to relate his situation to economic conditions today and for us to sympathize with him as a victim mortgage company, as a victim of these sinister forces that a little guy like him simply can't combat. And this is his opportunity to take back some of the power, which is what, of course, gets some of that admiration and affection from the public, and really gets the public on his side.
Now, Tony, a lot of worried folk out here.
This is unbelievable.
Okay, Dad, if you wanted to take a moment to apologize, I think it would expedite this release process.
I'm not going to admit guilt to something I didn't do.
Just apologize for what you did. Just apologize.
No, Tony, no. Stay strong, Richard.
Hello?
What's true and what's fiction in all of this, I don't know. I've picked up a little bit here and there. I know that I liked Skarsgård's skittishness, verging on derangement, but balanced by, I mean, you have to be a little bit deranged to do this, right? But balanced by rationality and focused indignation. And when he needs it, I mentioned the humor, self-effacing humor and charm. And you have to watch the way he walks in this movie. I said he was edgy. He walks always just a bit slouched forward, like he's consistently being pressed down upon. And then you've got Coleman Domingo, who's a prominent Indianapolis radio DJ named Fred Temple. Real guy, like all of these guys are. And Tony respects him and confides in him. And the movie really takes advantage of Domingo's voice, his great voice, and his natural charisma. And that character really adds to the revolutionary spirit of the movie. I wish there was more with that character, Josh. And I think it would have served that revolution aspect of the film, the political aspect of the film, a little bit better, because he really just becomes an extension of the FBI and the police in helping them against Tony. And not that I'm suggesting I think that character should be helping Tony, but there's never any sense really of conflict. Like he's helping the man in this. And I think it would have been interesting to sense a little bit of that antipathy, especially when everybody else in the public feels like Tony is the righteous one in this case. And Dacre Montgomery is someone I didn't recognize as Dick Hall. I guess he was a Power Ranger at one point. He was in Stranger Things for like 5 years. You're going to be seeing a lot more of Dacre Montgomery. He brings some real depth to this privileged character, and you understand that he has a little bit more in common with Tony than Tony may want to believe, than he may want to believe. And he's just such an interesting counter to Tony, because Tony is he's such a fast talker, but he is, again, that jittery kind of mover. And because of the nature of how he's confined, everything about Montgomery has to be internalized and completely still and quiet. And so watching those two play off each other is one of the enjoyable aspects of this movie. And I think it's fun to see Van Zandt in his bag here a little bit, not just with the effective use of the handheld camera, but he does incorporate real footage, or footage that's made to look like real TV news footage. I'm guessing there's a little bit of both. I don't know for sure. Like there's one scene early on when he's walking with Dick and the police are surrounding them, but there's nothing they can really do. They're walking to Dick's car because, of course, he can't get in his car. And a car, just a normal citizen, is driving a car. They come around a corner, and of course, they come upon this incredible scene, and they come around and they go off into the side, into a snowbank. And that footage then cuts in that moment to footage, TV news style footage of that happening. And it looks exact, as if it's matching perfectly. And I don't think it adds verisimilitude, though it does, but I don't think the purpose of it is that so much as it just kind of adds to the chaos of the moment without the movie ever really feeling like a sensory assault. And there is one, I did look this up to confirm this wasn't an invention, and it's kind of incredible, Josh. There's a magical coincidence that happened here in real life that Van Zandt exploits in the movie, and the screenwriter Austin Kolodny exploits. Here, when life and art collide, it required no extra manufacturing, just a little modulating maybe. He insists, I won't go into too many details, but at one point, Tony insists that he has to have a press conference and it has to go on TV nationally. And to accommodate that, the TV stations cut into the People's Choice Awards. And this is 1977, and they actually do cut into the People's Choice Awards right as John Wayne is accepting a People's Choice Award for favorite actor. And this is 8 years after True Grit.
Yeah.
He's done some movies. He's done The Shootist recently, but this is John Wayne at the tail end of his career. And this is kind of a tribute to him. And they're even playing, we see the montage of him. The montage is him entirely just shooting people, mostly Native Americans, but just entirely shooting people. And that moment and that montage, it really does encapsulate something that the movie is getting at in terms of this question of who are our heroes? Who are the real heroes? Who are our fake heroes? What's real violence and what's fake violence? Where do these lines kind of start to blur? And what are we willing to accept? What are we not willing to accept? I don't have answers to those questions. Those are some of the questions that the movie provokes with sequences like that. So I enjoyed Dead Man's Wire.
I'm so glad to hear it. This is just, and that you made time for it and are giving it some attention. It's just part of the craziness of this year end that we have a filmmaker like Vincent. This is happening with the new Jim Jarmusch movie. I think just this torrent of releases at the end of the year from huge names in filmmaking. So yeah, good to hear that Vincent is out there still doing important work. Dead Man's Wire is currently playing in limited release.
Next week will be our year-end wrap party, the studio edition. Those opening scenes, funniest scenes, music moment, and more. We remind you to send your picks, video or audio, feedback at filmspotting.net. We will also announce the 2025 Golden Brick winner, 5 finalists, Josh, and you as the listener not only get a vote, you are one of 4 votes that determines that winner, but we award the listener's choice. So it's an important vote. Please do go to filmspotting.net/bricks and vote now for the brick. And here's the thing you especially need to know. We did not give you much time, but this is just how it worked. We had a cutoff in the past of around Thanksgiving, but then that forced us to leave off some titles that we thought really were deserving of a nomination. And in this case, Zodiac Killer Project is a movie that if you were in a city that played it during its limited run, then you had a chance to see it. Otherwise, it just came out VOD the day we're recording this, actually, Tuesday, January 6th. So as you're hearing this, it's out now, but voting for the brick closes Sunday night, the 11th at midnight. So hopefully you're hearing this before then and you have a chance to see that movie. I will tell you this, and this isn't about swaying the vote at all. I don't think it's probably going to determine anything in the end. Josh, it really is just encouraging people to seek this movie out, that it's worth seeking it out at the end here, having a little bit of urgency. Listeners get a vote, I get a vote, you get a vote, producer Sam gets a vote. At least one of us has Zodiac Killer Project number 1 on their Golden Brick ballot.
Okay.
So it is worth your time, and hopefully you will have the time to see it and do finish up your homework and vote. It'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, did you run through these titles? Should I do that real quickly? The others?
Please go ahead.
And where people can find them. Hopefully Zodiac Killer Project, as you mentioned on VOD, right now is the last one, and listeners have been dutiful, and that's all they have to knock out. And you've already seen Boys Go to Jupiter. If you haven't, that's on VOD right now. Grand Theft Hamlet is available only via Mubi, a top 10 lister for me though, so I think it's worth checking out. Predators, available Paramount Plus, and then our last finalist here, a little bit more availability, Sorry Baby, you can find on HBO Max or VOD as well. So 5 really compelling titles to give some thought to and choose your favorite for the Golden Brick Award.
Next week, it might just be the wrap party and the announcement of the Golden Brick. Certainly that will be enough show, but you said it, Josh, some other titles are rolling out and expanding to more theaters. And it really is just a matter, well, at least for me, I don't know where you are, how much availability there is with some of these titles, but it's a matter of time for me. And the Jarmusch film, Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, is expanding. I have an opportunity to see that, may be able to see it and talk about it on next week's show. And then a title that I know has gotten a lot of love here, End of Year. Some listeners have written in and said that this is a movie that needs to be seen, that may be, in fact, the best film of the year and may contain the best scene of the year. That's Be Gone's Resurrection. That's expanding. And apparently it's one you have to see on the big screen, Josh. So maybe I will, and maybe I'll report back. We'll see.
Would love to do that as well. I don't know if availability plus the fact that I have travel coming up will make that possible. I will say this about next week's show, though. I am leaning towards mostly, I think, choosing scenes for our wrap party from films that were not on my top 10 list. So there will be some variety, maybe hitting some titles that listeners were wondering, where was that? Why didn't that come up? Will Resurrection be in there? Will Father, Mother, Sister, Brother be in there? Maybe. Likely not for me, but we'll see what happens in the next week.
So wait, you came up with a policy for your wrap party list? You didn't share this?
Not a policy. I just, honestly, it kind of happened naturally as I leaned towards those picks that came to the top. I thought, well, that's kind of nice. We haven't actually talked a lot about that film. So yeah, I think it'll shake out that way.
Okay. I am excited to hear about some of these titles. It's likely, Josh, I haven't seen some of the ones you're going to mention.
We'll find out. Quick note here about our sister podcast, The Next Picture Show, looking at cinema's present via its past. In case our lengthy conversation about Marty Supreme was not enough, they are going to be discussing it as well in conjunction with The Hustler. Such a great film. Adam, you might need to send the Next Picture Show folks an email and tell them Marty Supreme is not a hustler. You negate this pairing. This doesn't compute for you. Okay.
They didn't consult me. I
don't know what's wrong with those folks. Also, if you would like more talk about Avatar, Fire and Ash, that is in their feed. That's a conversation with Tasha Robinson and Keith Phipps. I was just listening to that today, their reactions after seeing Fire and Ash. And yeah, the Next Picture Show folks do have their best of 2025 show dropping soon. You can find new episodes every Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts.
What should you do, Heathcliff? If you were rich?
Suppose I'd do what all rich men do.
Time for a new deeply flawed film spotting poll. In a couple of weeks, we will do our 2026 preview. Now, in our notes, producer Sam has a question. In what format? We haven't discussed that. Time for a little on-air production meeting. Now, Josh, back in the day, and this even includes since you joined the show, we used to do a crazy thing. We would just do a straightforward top 5, our most anticipated movies of the year.
The
Count
easy
them
and the
down
obvious.
5-1. Yeah. Now, sometimes I think I was able to convince you to do something that you, I know, hate to do, which is we would set aside, kind of put in the penalty box some of the overly obvious ones. Like nobody needs to hear us talk about how excited we are about the new Wes Anderson film. But for the most part, we would do a straight top 5. Then we switched to the questions format, our top 5 questions about the movie year. Then we went to, please do the honors,
Folie à deux.
Folie à deux.
Matches.
We went to like
death
death matches.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pitted 2 upcoming movies against each other, and we had to choose which one we were most excited about.
Inspired, we should say, by your abiding love for Joker Folie à deux.
That's it.
Yeah.
Of course.
You just always wanted ways to fit that into the show.
That's right. Now, I can't wait to ask you this question because I would bet a significant amount of money that you have zero recollection of how we did this. And to be fair, I knew what it was, but when I looked it up, there was a detail that I had forgotten. So I didn't know it 100% either. Do you recall what our approach was last year with our movie preview?
I think I have an informed guess. And I need to back up though and fill in the history here. The reason we went away from the questions is because we discovered that our questions were too unique and we weren't talking about the biggest movies of the year, right?
The bigger
so
movies.
then we were getting feedback like, why are you doing a 2020 whatever preview and you don't mention the Wes Anderson? So then we had to contort ourselves.
And sometimes, we actually had too many movies that it ended up, we didn't end up reviewing some of the movies.
Obscure.
We didn't even talking about the movies that were in our preview. So
so it's all a vicious cycle. And then we had the Folie à Deux debacle. And I know what we did. Here's my guess. We also went through an extreme, I don't think we're fully out of it, but we went through an extreme draft phase where everything had to be a draft. Was last year's preview a draft?
It was a draft.
There you go.
It was a draft. The detail that I forgot was we did a top 10. So we each had 5 picks, but it was just 10 picks in order, alternating. You had the first pick. You picked the movie you were most excited about. That title, by the way, Mickey 17. Then I picked I got my number 1 pick. Turns out pretty smart one. One battle after another.
Yeah.
In
Too
the
bad
number
it wasn't
2
your
slot,
number 1 of the
you
year.
picked
That
number
would have
3.
been perfect.
I know. And then we just went back and forth until we had 10 titles that were our most anticipated of the year. So we obviously have lots of options. What are we going to do?
So despite the shade I just threw at the draft idea, I kind of like that. I like that we covered.
I thought it worked too.
I thought it was good we covered that many titles. Let's bring it up at our real production meeting with Sam this week.
Okay.
And see if he feels the same, but that's kind of where I'm leaning.
I am as well. And we'll see what Sam thinks, and we'll see if
Sam,
listeners.
The fact that it was his idea probably, and that we both like it, knowing Sam, that means he's going to come in with some cockamamie new idea that we will never have conceived of, and we'll be doing that.
Sam, bring it to the table. Listeners, you can bring your ideas to the table as well. Now, let's get back to the matter at hand. Our new poll question asks you to choose your most anticipated film of the new movie year that comes out before Memorial Day. So, most anticipated film that comes out first half of the year. Josh, please give our listeners the options.
Emerald Fennell with Wuthering Heights. That's starring Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride with Jessie Buckley and Christian Bale. Lord and Miller's Project Hail Mary. Ryan Gosling. I know nothing about this. Sounds great.
Oh, really? I've seen the preview. Yeah.
Okay. How about Zendaya and Robert Pattinson in the drama? Sure. David Lowery's Pop World drama horror movie. Mother Mary. Okay, I'm not sure what a Pop World drama is, but I'm ready for it.
Me either.
This stars Anne Hathaway and Michaela Cole. The Devil Wears Prada 2 is another option, and then we will give you the choice of other.
Yes, you can write in your pick if your most anticipated film is not there. Of those options, Josh, well, it turns out you don't know what most of those titles are, and I barely know what some of those titles are, so it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick. I guess just going off of actor or director, what stands out? I mean, The Bride probably stands out to some extent.
I've been aware of The Bride for quite some time. I'm still on a Frankenstein high.
It was on our preview last year.
I think it was. Yeah. Del Toro's, Frankenstein almost made my top 10. I'm like belated but fully on board with Jessie Buckley after Hamnet. So I want to go there. You know what? I think I'm going to go there because excited about Wuthering Heights, really a novel I love, but it's just an adaptation. The Bride seems to be doing something a little differently. I'm leaning towards the Zendaya Robert Pattinson because I appreciate both of them so much as actors, and I'm assuming the drama is an original concept, perhaps.
Yes.
It's not like something that's familiar.
Film.
Okay, not as familiar as Frankenstein or Wuthering Heights. So Right now, I'm torn between The Drama, Knowing Nothing Else, and The Bride. How about you?
It's written and directed by someone I'm not familiar with, Christopher Borgley. The log line here is a happily engaged couple is put to the test when an unexpected turn sends their wedding week off the rails. April 3rd is when The Drama is scheduled to come out, Josh. So
for some reason that
there are
pushes
some good
me
options
towards
here.
That pushes me towards The Bride. I just
Okay.
I don't know.
You heard wedding and you're like, I don't need it.
Been there, done that.
Let's go with, I wish I could go in a major different direction, but The Bride, and especially with that cast, is where I'm leaning. So I'm going to pick The Bride. You can vote in that poll and leave a comment at filmspotting.net. We will share your results in a couple of weeks.
انت تغطيه وما تحاول ما تنزفيش يعني حاولي انك تسكري الجو.
تمام السيارة جاية.
الو طوارئ الهلال الاحمر رام الله الضفه الغربيه عمر معك تفضل. الو.
We do have one more quick review to get in. This is just some viewing, Josh, that I did right before we started recording. As harrowing as the experience was, I thought it was important to try to fit in. And the movie is called The Voice of Hind Rajab, directed by and written by, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name here, Kaouther Ben Hania, who may be familiar to you. I can't remember, Josh. We did talk about and recommend Four Daughters on the show, but was that one that I recommended, or did we discuss that movie together? Do you recall reviewing that movie?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. If it's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
2023. I'm pulling it up now.
A fascinating film. Yeah.
Really good.
A really interesting film, blending fiction and nonfiction. And that is a movie I put in the category. I talked about it in terms of the ecstatic truth documentary style, very, very Herzogian, right? Where you have a woman who lost her two daughters, who, without getting into the details, are no longer part of her family. And so the filmmaker casts two young women to play her daughters, and in that artifice, or through that artifice, hopes to find some kind of answers and find some kind of catharsis in that. Really good movie. The Voice of Hind Rajab is doing something somewhat similar, only in the basic way that it is blurring fiction and nonfiction. It is deeply disturbing and vital. The film is about Red Crescent volunteers who receive an emergency call. It is based on a true story of a 5 or 6 year old girl named Hind Rajab, who was in a car traveling with 4 of her cousins and her aunt and uncle, and she gets caught in a firefight in Gaza and ends up on the phone pleading for rescue, Josh. And this little girl is only 8 minutes away from these volunteers. But of course, getting an ambulance to her is not as simple as it should certainly be. The blurring here is that everyone who performs in the movie, it is completely focused on the Red Crescent volunteers. They are all actors, and they are all performing from a script that Ben Hania has written. But we hear the real girl, the real Hind Rajab. That is all her audio, the actual audio from the call. You can imagine how horrifying it is to in what feels like real time, to have to sit with those characters, knowing how helpless they are despite all of their efforts to try to get to her. And something that stands out to me from the film is there are two moments where the manager of this center, he brings up to the character the man who first took the call, this guy named Omar. He's deeply affected by this, as you would expect, and he twice lights up a cigarette or tries to light up a cigarette, and the manager tells him, "You can't smoke in here." And these moments pass by, Josh, very quickly, but you just can't help but watch and hear that and think about the absurdity in a way, right? Of this, I don't know what to call it other than a call center. That's what it feels like. And there's a sterility and a banality to the setting here. We never see the girl. We never see the firefight. We only hear it. And otherwise we are focused only on those volunteers at the call center. And you think about the absurdity of this world in which everything is dictated by protocols. The word coordination is used 100 times in the movie, except everything seems to be uncoordinated and nothing is working the way it should. And it's a mess. And think about just the horror itself about what's occurring and what kind of just world did these things occur? What rules are being followed that allow these types of atrocities to occur? And yet in this place, you can't light up a cigarette. There's rules forbidding that have to be followed. And then as absurd as that is, you think, well, that does matter. That's important that we have rules, that in places where civility does exist, we need to keep making sure that we're enforcing rules. And those are some of the things that the movie makes you consider while you're thinking about so many other things watching it. And certainly it's not a movie that you have to be a parent to have a very tough viewing experience with or to be affected by emotionally. Absolutely not. But especially when you have a 5 or 6 year old young girl at home like I do, and when you hear your daughter and she is suffering in any kind of way, and your only instinct is to try to help her, and you hear this girl on the phone and you think about the way she's suffering and understand that nobody can help her, that's where the angst, for lack of a better word, really does occur watching this film. But as I said, I think it's an important film that people need to see, that is out now.
Yeah, that mixture of fact and dramatization, which, as you said, Four Daughters includes. In Four Daughters, it made me think also Herzog, as you said, but Abbas Kiarostami and films like Close Up, being in that tradition of pursuing truths about the human experience through the use of both tools of fact, harrowing fact, and also dramatization that maybe brings us into the moment in a different way. It sounds, as you said, like a tough watch, but yeah, a crucial one, especially you think about hearing these stories like this. I remember when this broke, and it made headlines in the States, and then the next tragedy happens and you kind of forget about it. So there's also something important, I think, about bringing this back to the fore, because the situation that it describes is still ongoing.
The voice of Hind Rajab is out now in limited release. And Josh, that's our show.
If you'd like to connect with us on social media, you can find Adam and the show on Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and YouTube, all at Filmspotting. I think I'm at each of those places as well. You can find me at Larson on Film. We are independently produced and listener supported. You can support the show by joining the Filmspotting family at filmspottingfamily.com. You can listen early and ad-free. You'll get a weekly newsletter, monthly bonus episodes, and access to the entire show archive. For show t-shirts and other merch, go to filmspotting.net/shop.
In that Film Spotting archive, you can find 2 conversations with the Safdie brothers talking about Uncut Gems, episode 757, and Good Time, episode 645. And yes, there's Avatar talk before you join the show, Josh, a Film Spotting fix from January 2010, and then later Avatar, The Way of Water from December 2022. In limited release, Jim Jarmusch's Father, Mother, Sister, Brother with Adam Driver, Cate Blanchett, Tom Waits, and Charlotte Rampling. This is the winner of the Golden Lion at last year's Venice Film Festival. Kristen Stewart's directing debut, The Chronology of Water with Imogen Poots and Thora Birch. And as I mentioned, the voice of Hind Rajab from the director of 2023's Four Daughters. In wide release, the sequel to 2020's comet-striking Earth movie, Greenland, with Gerard Butler, Greenland 2, Migration. Are you ready, Josh?
Do you
Greenland's in the news.
Do you think, I was just thinking about this, can Gerard Butler save Greenland from the Trump administration? I certainly hope so.
I hope so as well. Also, Primate, the feature-length version of the most entertaining trailer of the new movie year. The tagline, there's something wrong with Ben. Ben is a chimp, and here's the thing wrong with him. It's rabies.
Come on. Hey,
it seems to be anyway.
As Flight of the Conchords said, leave those poor monkeys alone. They've got problems enough of their own.
Yeah. In other news, it's January at the multiplex. Next week, as we have mentioned a few times, come on back for our scenes of the year, and we'll see what else we get up to.
Film Spotting is produced by Golden Joe Dassault and Sam Van Halgren. Without Sam and Golden Joe, this show wouldn't go. Our production assistant is Sophie Kempenaar. Special thanks to everyone at WBEZ Chicago. More information is available at wbez.org. For Film Spotting, I'm Josh Larson.
And I'm Adam Kempenaar. Thanks for listening.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.